Tjena, and welcome everyone from sunny southern Sweden. So we're going to respond to the Finn McCool, and he said, Karl Jung once said that the howling wind of Odin would rise in America and not Europe. And he asked my thoughts on that and said maybe that's happening. So, with my most patriotic thing I have on, I want to say no, I disagree wholeheartedly. It is quite common for us Americans to impart our own significance, as in we're from a giant country that's very big on the world stage, but we also don't travel elsewhere that much. So we give priority to our own thoughts and feelings. And yes, heathenry is growing in America, and that's tied to a lot of negative trends I'm going to speak on. But also, we don't see how popular it is in Scandinavia. I mean, it's ubiquitous. It's the place names. It's everywhere. People, even when you're secular and atheist, you have a strong leading to your cultural traditions, which I think is more responsible heathenry than polemic or zealoted adherence to the actual reality of the gods. So, no, I don't think it's rising in America and not Europe. I think it'll always be a fringe or a back to nature kind of concept, back to our human nature. And that's going to be popular anywhere in post-industrial society where we are increasingly isolated, right? And we used to have to rely on community. Now we're isolated, so we rely on self. And if you rely on self, you eventually turn back to those that existed before you because you're not surrounded by your peers. And those that existed before you always go back to pre-Abrahamic religions. So anyway, I guess I'll talk about why I think that America is not the center of it. First off, see that book right there? That's the howl. That one's from Jim Lingveld. He said I was the world's second most famous, or just world's second greatest Viking, and it behind him. So, but a lot of people in America come from Abrahamic traditions, right? And when leaving something that has formulated your entire life, and in fact the society in America is very Abrahamic in structure, as in it was founded by Puritans and other people that were forced out of Europe because they had extreme views that weren't accepted by the more relaxed mainstream. The first waves of settlers were people that couldn't be in Europe, as it always is. I mean, look, Iceland was settled by the people that were kicked out of Norway first, and then Greenland in turn, and then Vinland in turn. It's always the people that are on the fringe of society that go. And those that are on the fringe of society, one, are more susceptible to joining cults, and two, are more willing to leave. So America was founded by a bunch of cultists, and there is a puritanical leading in that country. So how does that get back to the have 'em all? Well, people drag on it like it's the Bible. They give quotes, and the have 'em all is not the Bible. The have 'em all is a specific snapshot of the colonization period of Iceland. And it gives us an important insight to the way those people practiced their heathenry, but it is by no means an illuminated sacred text akin to the Bible, the Torah, the Tanakh, or the Quran. Secondly, when our entire societal structure and daily life structure is affected by the Abrahamic beliefs, we have a template, right? And as soon as you expand out of things, humans have the tendency to try to characterize everything and put everything in a box so they can understand it better, especially when it's an alien concept. Now, I happen to believe heathenry could not be farther away from Christianity or Judaism or Islam. Closest maybe to Judaism, because let's get down to it, they sing or chant around a fire. But in some cases, there are not parallels. In many senses, the things that look to be parallels could be opposites, or that's the way we could have remembered them in times today because they were written down by Christians. The perfect example is Valhalla. Valhalla is not heaven. I've done a video that was 20-some minutes long about other places you could wind up in life. And we don't know that Valhalla was actually ever that popular until the extreme late Viking Age to try to get people to go out and fight after they had largely lost the need to go out and raid in Viking. But then also it was a literary work to, make things more interesting. It's kind of how we know Bragi is not actually a god. He was a poet and then elevated to the status of a god. So, Valhalla is not heaven. There's no need for a beard. You see all these people with beard. So that's what I mean when we put it in a Christian or Abrahamic template, is that people are trying, in America specifically, but also in other more puritanical societies, other former colonial societies, people are trying to take heathenry and put it into the template of the Abrahamic faith because that's all they've been raised with, right? Christianity, and then as an extension, maybe some knowledge of Judaism or Islam. And they have nothing to do together. They aren't the same family. Like paganism, heathenism, asatru has nothing to do with the Abrahamic faiths. And you can't put it in the template. I myself have explained that I once tried to keep a beard at work when I was in my early 20s and tried to explain, if you couldn't have been a king in the back in the days unless you had a red beard, and that shows you're descended from the gods, and yada yada yada. You have to be ready to go back to Ragnarok or Armageddon, which, no, Ragnarok is not Armageddon. We don't even know. Actually, in this book I love referring to, they say Ragnarok could have been the ice sheets coming, right? Fimbulvinter. And when the ice sheets come, what do? You starve. What does starving do? Leads brother to fighting brother. So that's an interesting thing to think of. And then that concept might have existed before, but then it was slightly twisted and Christianized. There are parallels there. Okay, Odin hung and sacrificed himself to himself. But that's also in almost every religion. There is always a sun that rose or someone that resurrected. So was the influence Christian or pre-Christian? We can't really tell. All we know is that heathenry, specifically Germanic or Norse paganism, does not have or need parallels to Christianity and other Abrahamic faiths. So stop trying to make those parallels. Separate them. Keep them apart. In my group, somebody asked yesterday, how do you get to Valhalla? Is the battles that go, and of course it's specifically written in the text. And then somebody else responded, well, has the warfare changed? Has it gone to guns instead of swords and axes? And it's like, how the hell would anybody know that? What are you talking about? Like something written thousands of years ago or illuminated maybe thousands of years ago, but written down 1,000 years ago. How would it be updated? Are people going to Valhalla and coming back? And I think that's a specific difference with American heathenry as well. Because we come from a world in the U.S. where crazy beliefs, such as Jesus being real and walking on water and the denial of science is accepted and actually pushed by a silent majority and specifically one half of the populace and the political parties, because this denial of science is allowed to exist, that many of these people, when they convert to from Christianity to something like paganism, to insulate themselves from the cultural attacks, they become zealoted. And they believe, literally, that, Thor's flying around with teeth gnasher and gasher, and then that Odin's literally coming and visiting people. Whereas here in Scandinavia, we understand a varied role. People can believe that the gods are real, but not in our present life, all the way to we are completely atheist, agnostic, and they are archetypes, and everything in between with, look, who does that? In between with animism, syncretism, ancestor worship, and all that. So that's just my thoughts on it. Yes, heathenry is rising in the U.S., but unfortunately, because of the puritanical realities of the U.S., everybody tries to put a hierarchy on heathenry and put it into the known templates of what is the Abrahamic faith. And that goes into the organizational side of things, with the many heathen churches setting up. And I find fault with them. But I don't find fault with people that are turning and you use your box, you characterize, you use your template to understand things. Just don't stop learning and don't expound upon, you being right about these parallels. And I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this because I'm talking about the U.S. And, it is what it is. But I am from there. It colored who I am. But I chose not to let my own isolation and growing up in a puritanical society infringe or inhibit my development as a person. And I decided to seek out and try to learn more how to be rationally. And I'm sure you can see, if you read any of my writings or see some of my early videos, there is an evolution. I was more hardline, and I, even though I wasn't maybe drawing parallels with Abrahamic faiths, I put everything in a neat little box. And nothing fits in a box in heathenry. That's the point, right? There's no comparison to anything else out there. Maybe Hinduism. And if you study that, you will see there's, literally thousands of deities, and anything can mean anything. Look at the prevalence of the battle deities in Norse society. It's almost all of them. And was it always almost all of them? We don't know. Was that something put forth by, the Christians just to demonize the Scandinavian heathens? Some of the things we'll never know. But anyway, never stop on your path to growth. Climb highly, my friends. And with that, I implore you to enjoy your own Nordic journeys.